We'll call this meeting to order. The first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. I might say that we have about 29 chairs there, and we have an overflow room with a screen and chairs in the back. So hopefully everybody can find a spot. So I'm coming back. Our IT guy is just going to make sure that they can hear everything and everything is viewable back in the overflow room. Next order of business is a call of the roll.
Supervisor Brian Johnson,
Here.
Supervisor Patrick Breslin,
Here.
Supervisor Vaughn Hedlund,
Here.
Supervisor Ronald Score,
Here.
Supervisor Gary Steen,
Here.
Supervisor Jim Zons,
Present.
Supervisor Gary Bjork,
Here.
Supervisor Luke Wilsey,
Here.
Supervisor Thomas Quinn, Supervisor Michael Rogers,
Here.
Supervisor Corley Witzel, Supervisor Mike Kinnear, Supervisor Monica Barrier, Supervisor John Calabrese, Supervisor Donald Ether,
Here. Good work. That was good.
Supervisor Ann Vogel.
Here.
Supervisor Kelly McCullough,
Here.
Supervisor Sean Breslin, Supervisor Carl Vandermeulen, Supervisor Hillary Robinson,
Here.
Supervisor Diane Morehouse, Supervisor Andrew Hagan, Supervisor Mark Thomas,
Here.
Supervisor Randy Prochnow, Supervisor Tom Gilbert, Supervisor Larry Bjork, Supervisor Robert Bauer, Supervisor Tim Lenow, Supervisor Jerry Joe Hartung. All present.
Yeah. Thank you, Jackie. This is Jackie's first swing in the batter's box as being a deputy clerk here, so I'm sure she'll do fine. Bear with us up here. Next order of business is the approval of the minutes, November 15th, 2022. I have a motion, Supervisor Zahn. I have a second, Supervisor Bjork. Any discussion, corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion's carried. Next order of business is presentation of petitions, memorials, and other communications. We'd like to recognize retiring county employees Paula McClellan, 34 years, Janet Rydell, 25 years, and Scott McRoberts, 26 years. We thank them for their service and I wish them well in the next stage of their life. The next order of business is public comment. The first thing we're going to have is a presentation by the Chippewa St. Croix Rail Commission, Mr. Scott Rogers. Scott, are you there?
I am, Gary. Can you hear me okay?
I think so. Yes, sir.
Well, good evening, everybody. And if I could have permission to share my screen, I'd like to show some things and illustrate some of the information about what the commission is doing. And I don't think I have permission yet, so I can talk a little bit about it. The Chippewa St. Croix Rail Commission was formed last year by resolution by, here we go. All right, you should just be seeing, it says Chippewa St. Croix Rail Commission at the top. So this commission was formed last year by 3 counties and 6 municipalities with the purpose of advancing the public interest by pursuing the implementation of passenger rail service and other public transportation improvements for the St. Croix and Chippewa valleys. And you can see it was St. Croix, Dunn, Eau Claire counties, as well as those 6 municipalities you see listed there. And currently, Jim Dunning of Eau Claire County is the chair of the commission. Gary Steen is the vice chair, and I am one of the commissioners, and I've been pretty active in the commission. So Gary has been attending the meetings, and Chris as well, and they asked to bring an update today as to what the commission has been up to. There's also some ex officio members of the commission, and you can see a map here, basically the area that it covers from Eau Claire to the Minnesota border. And other stakeholders involved in the commission as ex officio members are the Union Pacific Railroad, under whose tracks any future service would run, the Departments of Transportation from both Wisconsin and Minnesota, and the 2 counties in Minnesota that the service would run through, as well as the 5 institutions of higher learning. And when you start talking about trains and passenger rail service, of course, this is what a lot of people think of. The old 400 that used to run from Chicago to the Twin Cities, and in its last iteration, it looked like this. And here's a picture of a crowd getting on a train at the station in Eau Claire, and you can tell by the way they're dressed, that's not a recent photo, and that's because it's been since 1963 that we've had passenger rail service to our region. And really during the time of the 50s into the 60s and 70s, pretty much all the public investment went into highways and airports. And this is sort of what we envisioned it would be like traveling that way. And sometimes it isn't quite that way. Sometimes there are challenges in traveling, and sometimes it would be good to have another alternative. And in some ways, we've been seeing our country going back to the future, where here's Portland Union Station in Portland, Oregon, says go by train, and increasingly people in the Pacific Northwest and other parts of the country are going by train, including nearby states like Illinois, Missouri, and Michigan. And as we looked around the country and saw what was going on, we thought that this would be an advantage to our area to have passenger rail service. There is other service near us. For instance, the Chicago to Milwaukee Hiawatha service that Wisconsin and Illinois sponsor is one of the most successful corridors in the country. It's had growing ridership. They're increasing service. And something that's actually going to be starting this year is Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Illinois got together, and they're going to be putting an additional train on the current route from Minneapolis to La Crosse and on through the Wisconsin Dells to Milwaukee and Chicago. The current route has a long distance train that goes to Seattle called the Empire Builder that some of you might have heard of. The reason we do this, of course, is that there's an economic impact in having an additional method or option for transportation in an area. As Wisconsin put together something they call the TCMC, and that's that new service starting. They're finding that their investment is returned many times over, and the economic impact having that transportation option to them. And in fact, Missouri, which supports a couple trains between St. Louis and Kansas City, did an economic study recently, and they found that it cost them about $8 million a year to be able to provide that service. And their studies estimate that it brings the state $200 million in economic activity, of which there's $22 million in tax revenue alone. So if we wanted passenger rail service to our area, how do we get it? And it's something there's been a long-term interest in. The West Central Wisconsin Rail Coalition has been around for several years working on this aspect and getting it as a economic development strategy for a balanced transportation system for economic growth. And the impetus originally was when a Midwest system was being planned a number of years ago. You can't really read this map, but our region, Eau Claire, Menominee, Hudson, were really left out when the state was envisioning expanding passenger rail service. And some of the arguments that we had was the fast growing population in our area, the quality of life we have, the 3 major state universities, the traffic that's going by in our area, and the significant commerce between our area and the Twin Cities. And the West Central Wisconsin Rail Coalition was initially formed to work on this. Number of community and business leaders and education leaders from West Central Wisconsin DOT sponsored a report in 2004 that found an Eau Claire to Twin Cities or a through service through this area would be financially feasible. And the first effort was to get on the maps. And this is a map of the Minnesota Rail Plan. And they included Eau Claire to the Twin Cities as a route in a future service. And also Wisconsin has a rail plan which says, here's where we envision future passenger rail service happening in our state. But just getting on a map doesn't get you a passenger train, of course. And it does take support. And as I mentioned, a lot of the federal support in the past and our public support went almost strictly to highways and to airports. And that has changed significantly just in the last year and a half. You're probably familiar with something called the bipartisan infrastructure law. It dealt with a lot of infrastructure across all modes, but it included unprecedented funding for developing passenger rail service in our country. And this shows the number. It's about $66 billion over 5 years. It's really hard to look at this, and this is a lot of detail, but what's relevant here is this chart shows the passenger rail investment federally for the last 10 years. And what it does show is that for this year and the next 5 years, there's more federal investment going into passenger rail than there has been in the last 10 years combined. And what that really means is the Federal Railroad Administration was charged with coming up with a way to go forward with this, to identify places where it would make sense to the country, where there would be ridership, where we'd have economic benefits. And it takes a little while to get a program off the ground. The bill was passed about a year ago. They started the program last spring, and then just last month in the Federal Register, the FRA put out a notice of solicitation saying they have funding available for planning for corridors that get designated by the FRA. And so the next step by March 20th is to get corridors designated by the FRA to apply to have your corridor included. And then there's a multi-step development process. And you can't read this chart, but what's really relevant here is sort of in the middle where it says project planning step 1. If a corridor is accepted into the program, there's an automatic $500,000 in federal funding with no match required that allows an entity that gets a grant like this to really do the planning to figure out what would it take to develop the corridor, and then what are the actual steps to implementing it. And so that's the next step in seeing passenger rail service in our region. And there's really 3 ways that we in the future could be seeing being able to buy a passenger train ticket from Menominee. One is a thing we've been working on in this area for a long time, and that's frequent regional service between Eau Claire and the Twin Cities. Also a through service from Chicago and Milwaukee to the Twin Cities through our region. And then also what we would call throughway shuttle connections to existing Amtrak stations. And that would be an example where when the second train is added, that would go through Toma, La Crosse, and Winona up to the Twin Cities. WISDOT has included in their planning the idea of having a dedicated shuttle from Menominee and Eau Claire to Toma, where you'd be able to buy, for instance, an Amtrak ticket from Menominee. You'd get on a dedicated shuttle that would take you to Toma, and then you'd board the train there, and it would take you on to Milwaukee or Chicago. So this is just a quick illustration of the route of a regional corridor. We're looking at several trains a day, maybe 4, between Eau Claire and the Twin Cities through Menominee, Baldwin, and Hudson, over the tracks of the Union Pacific Railroad, which has been involved in this process, and really looking at an innovative, competitive process where there are 4 companies who do contract operations of passenger rail. None of them are household words. It's Herzog, Keolis, Transdev, and RATP Dev. But they are very well known in the transportation industry because they contract and operate trains all over the country, and in some cases internationally. And this is an example of Herzog, which has operations around the country. They operate as many trains and carry as many passengers as Amtrak does. And each of these 4 organizations do that. For instance, Transdev is the one that operates the Milwaukee streetcar, and these other entities operate services. So the commission is actually contracted with a consultant who is working with these organizations to explore the idea of a competitive contract service between Eau Claire and the Twin Cities through Menominee. to see what it would take to get that service going, with the idea that it would be an effective and efficient way to implement the service. Some of you might have seen this map. Because of this federal funding, Amtrak, which runs the national passenger rail system, put out a map where they said, here are some areas where we think expanded passenger rail service might make sense. And if you take a look at Wisconsin, the lines in the Wisconsin rail plan, including a line through Eau Claire and Menominee, are among the lines that they think might make sense. And in fact, they've gone into a little more detail, saying that implementing the next Chicago to Milwaukee to Twin City service might indeed run through our corridor. This is a little closer look at that route map. There's been a lot of interest in Fox cities in Green Bay, as well as Madison, and also getting corridors designated. So what's going to be happening over the next 2 months is entities like Wisconsin DOT or like this commission will be looking at putting applications together to FRA to qualify for that planning funding and then take things to the next step. In fact, the commission met this morning, and you aren't going to be able to read this, but I'll tell you what this is. And that's a letter going to Wisconsin DOT, really requesting 2 things. One, that WisDOT go ahead and submit that Chicago to Twin Cities corridor through our region as one of the corridors to be studied, as well as to support our commission with technical assistance and advocacy and support for the regional corridor, and to help take that forward. This is just another map of what in the long-term future Wisconsin could look like in terms of passenger rail services. All of the blue lines would be passenger trains, and the green lines would be connecting shuttles to reach more places. I don't know if anybody would recognize this picture, but this is a picture from I believe the 1940s, students getting on the train in Menominee, going home from Stout for spring break. We want that to become an everyday occurrence in Menominee. This is a more modern picture in Champaign, Illinois, where the University of Illinois has passenger rail service. Here you can have families riding the train. The train would be a way to bring tourists to our area to ride our bike trails, take advantage of our outdoor activities, fall colors, other things. And then one of the things we talked about, shuttle services, offline communities like River Falls or Chippewa Falls or others. It's been very successful in other places. Other areas of Wisconsin, such as the Fox Valley, has dedicated bus service to Milwaukee to take the train to Chicago, and California has been very, very successful with this. So our aim for the next few years is, when you're contemplating a trip, for instance, to the Twin Cities or Milwaukee, instead of wondering if this is what you're going to counter and what time are you going to get to your event or meeting, that you be able to redeem your time, spend it on the train, and use it productively. The next meeting of the commission, we're meeting every month now with this process going on to get the application in by March 20th. The next meeting will be on February 15th in Dunn County. And if you are interested in this topic, the West Central Wisconsin Rail Coalition, of which I'm currently the chair, is having its annual meeting next week on Thursday from 8:30 to 11:30 at CVTC. It's also available via Zoom. And we will have people there from Amtrak, from the Wisconsin Department of Transportation, and from the independent carriers, talking about how this might happen and what can be done to bring passenger rail service to our region of Wisconsin. I do have at the bottom there a couple email addresses if you have questions, whether it's about that meeting or want to follow up and ask things about the commission and what's going on. But we're closer than we've ever been, and the prospects are pretty bright for having rail passenger service to Dunn County and Menominee and other parts of West Central Wisconsin. So I'll stop sharing there. I told Chris I'd be under 15 minutes, and I think I made it. So if you have any questions, otherwise I'd be glad to follow up as well.
Thank you very much, Scott. Does any board members have any questions of Scott Rogers? I don't see any, so thank you very much, Scott. Our next order of business is the public comment, and I'd just like to read this to preface what's going on here. And I would hazard a guess that most of the people are here concerning Taylor Lake Rehabilitation District order, and I'm glad everybody's here. The county board rule prohibits public comment on issues that have previously been subject to a public hearing. Tonight, the county board is taking action on a proposed order establishing a lake district, which has already been subject to a public hearing. Permitting public comment would require a motion to suspend that rule and must pass by a 2/3 vote. I know that I felt that something this important should be made available for comment to the people. And so at this point in time, if there is a motion to suspend the rules, if that would be in order. Supervisor Quinn.
Allow a period of public comment on the proposed order establishing the Taylor Lake Rehabilitation District.
Is there a second? Supervisor Zahn. Okay, we have a motion and a second to suspend the rules. Is there any discussion? All right, now. Pardon? Oh, Supervisor Vandermillen.
Weigh in that it's a long list. If you could suggest that if we pass this, if speakers would keep their comments brief and listen to previous comments, and if somebody previously says something that they plan to say, if they could simply sort of second the motion, it might make things go along more efficiently.
Thank you for your suggestion there. I was going to get to that in a second here. So does everybody understand what we're voting on? This takes a 2/3 vote of everybody that's at this meeting, supervisors. Any discussion? Hearing none.
It doesn't have to be by roll call, but a roll call vote may be more reliable. in
Yeah.
determining.
I will call for a roll call vote.
Supervisor Robinson,
Yes.
Supervisor Robinson votes yes. Supervisor Rogers. Supervisor Rogers votes yes. Supervisor Score.
Yes.
Supervisor Score votes yes. Supervisor Steen.
Yes.
Supervisor Steen votes yes. Supervisor Thomas.
Yes.
Supervisor Thomas votes yes. Supervisor Vandermeulen. Supervisor Vandermeulen votes yes. Supervisor Vogel.
Yes.
Supervisor Vogel votes yes. Supervisor Wilsey. Supervisor Wilsey votes yes. Supervisor Witzel. Supervisor Witzel votes no. Supervisor Zans.
Yes.
Supervisor Zans votes yes. Supervisor McCullough.
Yes.
Supervisor McCullough votes yes. Supervisor Bauer. Supervisor Bauer votes yes. Supervisor Barrier.
Yes.
Supervisor Barrier votes yes. Supervisor Bjork. Gary.
Yes.
Supervisor Gary Bjork votes yes. Supervisor Larry Bjork.
Yes.
Supervisor Larry Bjork votes yes. Supervisor Patrick Breslin.
Yes.
Supervisor Patrick Breslin votes yes. Supervisor Sean Breslin.
Yes.
Supervisor Sean Breslin votes yes. Supervisor Calabrese.
Yes.
Supervisor John Calabrese votes yes. Supervisor Gilbert.
Yes.
Supervisor Gilbert votes yes. Supervisor Hagan. Supervisor Hagan votes yes. Supervisor Hartung. Supervisor Hartung votes yes. Supervisor Headland.
Yes.
Supervisor Headland votes yes. Supervisor Johnson.
Yes.
Supervisor Johnson votes yes. Supervisor Kinnear. Supervisor Kinnear votes yes. Supervisor Keither.
yes,
Supervisor Keither votes yes. Supervisor Leno.
Yes.
Supervisor Leno votes yes. Supervisor Morehouse.
Yes.
Supervisor Morehouse votes yes. Supervisor Prochnow. Supervisor Prochnow votes yes. Supervisor Quinn.
Yes.
Supervisor Quinn votes yes. More than 2/3.
Motion passes. I'm going to first set out 35 minutes for the testimony or for the remarks. I'd like to have everybody that's going to speak come up and speak at the podium here, and we'll limit your address to 3 minutes apiece. And I would like to have pro and con, for and against as we go through. If we need more time after this, I'm sure that we can get it. Does that sound reasonable? Who is the first person? Oh, we're gathering the signatures there. So when you come up, please identify yourself and your address. Yeah. Now I have no way of knowing who's pro and con here, but you understand, in fairness, I think that's the way it ought to be. So I'm just going to take the names as they came here. And right away, I got a name that I'll mispronounce, I'm sure. San Mejo Beach. Come on up. Please give us your name and address, sir.
Samoni Tabaja, E6194, 848th Avenue, Colfax. I'm very brief. I'm sure everybody wants to clean the lake. And I did sign it. I didn't realize when I read more that 2% of the levy is just for administrative purposes. None of that fund will be applied towards cleaning. I don't agree with that. And if I had to withdraw my signature, I would do that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next person, Carol Pellet.
Hi, Carol Pellet, E6194, 848th Avenue. Okay. I'll also be very brief. I just feel I did sign the petition. I was not informed of all that was entailed. Basically, it sounded like we would be getting grants and other things that would cover. And it said we get tax exempt things and stuff like that. It didn't say how much taxes we would be charged. And now I would like to withdraw my petition my signing of the petition if possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a speaker that's in favor of this? Yeah. Please approach.
Good evening, Tom Bills, E5408 770th Avenue. I've been involved in this process from the very beginning. We started our petition process 11 months ago. We distributed these flyers to every mailbox or every front door in the proposed Lake District area. We held 5 signing events for people to come and talk to us and ask questions. After that, we went door to door in every neighborhood on the lake. We broke it into 30 different neighborhoods and we knocked on every door. Now, there were some people that were very enthusiastic about the Lake District, others less so. We understand that. And there were some people that wouldn't talk to us, which is unfortunate because here tonight, I know you're going to hear people like we have in committee meetings for the last nearly 6 months say they have questions that are unanswered. Had they taken the time to sit down with us, we would have been able to answer those questions to the best of our ability. And if the person that was at your door did not know the answer, there are 2 emails right down here where we would have, had you contacted us, we would have gotten you that information. We had a person in committee was it last week, 2 weeks ago, say that they weren't told, and our representative could not say what organizing mechanism we were using. She asked if we would be using chapter 33. And in 2 spots on the petition packet, it mentions chapter 33. Once again, the answers are here. We can't make you read them. People have talked about our proposals, and that's all they are, is proposals for the Lake District as being experimental. That's bunk. The proposals we made are all tried and true science, and it's being used in the state of Wisconsin and right across the river in Minnesota. There's nothing experimental about biomanipulation. Lastly, my point here. People have suggested that we just made the petition number at 50, we had to have 51% to meet state requirements, the threshold. What you have to understand is with the Lake District, it is an uphill battle from the beginning. You are not given credit for any people that are deceased in the Lake District. We had 17 that were deceased that we didn't get an opportunity to talk to, and we did not get credit for. They don't reduce that number from the total. The other thing is we had 35 people sign our petition that weren't on the 2021 tax rolls, which is what was used. They bought their property after the 2021 tax rolls were produced. So if you take that 17 people out of the mix and add those 35 people into the mix, that shows that we have significant support on the Lake District. I don't know why anyone would question that. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have another person that's in favor of this district? Please come forward.
My name is Adam Mux, reside at E64648 67th Avenue. Come here today to ask the Board of Supervisors to support this Lake District proposal. I have no affiliation with these gentlemen that have put this together. I've never even personally met them before. But as somebody with young children that lives on the lake, I feel like my perspective is aligned with a lot of my peers and people with young children on the lake. I feel like we have a health issue where I can't take my kids outside in August. The lake is declining rapidly. And if the momentum that this group has put forth does not go through, I am fearful of what the future will bring. I don't think we're ever going to see efforts like this put forth again. So I ask the Board of Supervisors to approve this Lake District. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person on the list is Kirk Zucklin. Zerline, excuse me for butchering your name, sir.
My name is Kirk Zerline. I live at E6357 County Road D. I'm a retired Marine Sergeant Major, and I'm new to the Lake District. We built our home last year, and what a way to get welcome to the lake. 2.5% tax increase for operating costs of a lake district that we don't need. I've heard Mr. Bill say that, we did this and we did that, and we put out flyers, and he even held up the flyer and said, chapter 33 is on the flyer. It's not. Looked at it. Not there. Not on the flyer, not on the initial flyer that went around. Maybe at later dates it was, but not on the initial flyer, which I didn't receive and none of my neighbors received. And you only talk about the 2.5%. What they fail to mention is the other two forms of taxation that you can be assessed. So the first one that they didn't mention is the power of finance. So if they can't get grants and they can't get donations, they can go out and procure loans to fund their projects. And if they procure these loans, they're going to tax you on the interest and the principal of these loans. Sorry, got hit in the head. Got plates and screws holding my head together. But so principal and interest of those loans to be paid back over a 10-year period. And there is no limit to the rate or amount of this tax. Grants, if you talk about dredging, you're not going to get grants for dredging unless that dredging is guaranteed to last for 50 years. So they can go out and take out loans for any project they want to fund, and you're going to foot the bill for that loan, principal and interest, no limit. The next one is special assessments. They take out a loan for that special assessment. They want to dredge the area by Champney Park. All those houses that live along Champney Park, they're going to assess that based on the benefit that your property is going to gain by that dredging. And then they're going to assess your property based on the benefit that you're going to receive, and then they're going to tax you that percentage based on that loan of that project. They didn't tell you that, but that's in the chapter also. So not only are you getting the 2.5% that only covers operating costs, any loans that they get, you're going to get assessed tax on that. Any special project that goes on in front of your house or your property, you're going to get assessed tax on that too. All to be paid back in about 10-year period or less. And there's no limit. So the costs associated with the district are not a mere 2.5% of the assessed property of your assessed value. So when these petitioners went door to door seeking your signature, they were deceitful, dishonest, and only told half truths. And that's why you heard previously some members say they wanted their name removed from the list. Right now, as of June 7, 2021, the Red Cedar Watershed Project won a Momentum West Regional Impact Award. This is UW Stout doing the Red Cedar Watershed Project from Barron all the way down to Pepin. They said that 79,000 pounds of phosphorus has been reduced flowing into Lake Tainer annually. They just received a grant of $342,000 over the next 3 years, started in 2022, to continue their project. Why are we doing this when there's already a method in place to treat our waterways? And if we do this, how does that affect the processes that are going on right now? And why are we going to compete for grants with processes that are already in place? When they already have the Army Corps of Engineers, the DNR, and other federal agencies already vetted within that organization. That makes absolutely no sense to me, and this has to stop. Thank you.
Thank you. Ann Zerline. Okay, thank you. Do we have another person that would be in favor to stand up and talk? Please come forward, sir.
My name is Pete Heimdahl, N 7298 520th Street, Menominee. I live on the lake. I was a member, or I am a member of the Friends of the Red Cedar Basin Board. I like to look at myself as the architect of the petition drive that we made. This was a monumental project, by the way. Hard work by lots of people. And I'll tell you, that was a hard act to follow, but I'll try to be as excited. Nobody has said anything about a 2.5% tax. If you read the statute correctly, it says the maximum that can be charged is $2.50 per $1,000 of assessed value. That's a lot of money, and we understand that. But we have heard that number thrown around for as long as we have been trying to establish a lake district. In my estimation, if the board of commissioners of the Lake District tries to push through projects which cost $2.50 per $1,000 of assessed value, I would personally lead a campaign to vote them out the next annual meeting. And by the way, those commissioners are selected by during an annual meeting by the landowners in the Lake District. And furthermore, those commissioners would present projects which may include assessments during the annual meeting. And at that annual meeting, the landowners are the ones who decide whether those projects will be attempted and funded. So they're not a bunch of people sitting there and making decisions for the people who live on the lake and then charging them a whole heck of a lot of money. Now, we have heard comments about the fact that the people were not informed. And I want to reiterate what Tom Bill said, and that was, we put this document that we put on the flag of every mailbox, of every piece of property in the proposed district, was the only one that was published. It was not modified later. That's a bunch of speculation, and it's not correct. And to throw that piece of speculation out here before the county board, I feel is somewhat irresponsible. In our drive to get a petition signed, we never really mentioned projects that we think the Lake District should consider. Our job was to establish a Lake District. That was it. We think it's the only way. $435,000 grants, which I think are money thrown in the wrong direction anyway. You have to take a look at what they're spending that money for. Uh, those things out there are not the only hope we have to improve Lake Tainter and maybe eventually Lake Minoman too, would be a lake district. And I'm 100% for it. And I am 83 years old. I worked hard on this. I will never see the results, but I'm doing this for my neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Eric Anderson. Okay. Darla Anderson. Okay. Brad O'Connell.
Good evening. My name is Brad O'Connell, E5334, 732nd Avenue, Menominee. I am opposed to this. I was approached and I have a background in public service, so I understood the paperwork I was looking at, and never once was it brought up, the details that have been previously stated about taxation and about voting on everything. No one said that if you signed that petition, that was a yes vote for the district. It was not. And ladies and gentlemen of the supervisors, you're in a difficult position because arithmetically, there's a number that says we should move forward on this. But common sense and listening to the people here, the names wouldn't be on there if they was explained in the detail that has now come up. And a lot of the detail that has come up to explain this to people has been on the opposing side. I admit that. But still, it's factual. I thank you for your time. Good evening.
Thank you, sir. Al Brown.
Al Brown, E5294, 768th Avenue, Menominee. I'll make my comments brief. I'm speaking in favor of the Lake District. I was not a part of the Friends of the Red Cedar. I didn't even know those people, but when the flyer came out, my wife and I attended all the meetings. I had questions. I emailed the emails on the bottom of the flyer. I got my questions answered. I went to 2 of the signings with additional questions, got my questions answered. So all of the stuff about people not having access to the group was wrong. I even ran into Mr. Bills because he was pounding on doors in my neighborhood, and there's 3 of us down there, and so we kind of check out who's in our neighborhood anyway. But I just want to say that I don't agree with the negativity. I agree that this is a good process. The county board has control if the appointment of the people that represent the initial commissioners. You have county representation on that committee. I disagree that there is going to be mad taxation without any kind of explanation. Thank you for your time and good luck.
Thank you, sir. Wayne Smith.
Wayne Smith, my wife Linda and I live on a parcel at N 7490 515th Street. I signed the petition. At any opportunity that I have, I will take my name off of that petition. Was told that there might be some funding through grants. But basically, the gentleman coming to the door and one was, you want to clean up Lake Tainter? There's probably not one of you in this room that doesn't want it a little bit cleaner. the point is, can we afford it? And is it something that should just be assessed to the people around the lake? It's a community lake. It's a county lake. And more people have access to it than you really understand, I believe. Again, the commissioners have a difficult task, but it seems like the fact that you have absolutely no oversight in this would beg to be an issue. This 33, it came up in the 70s for whatever reason, and I just can't understand, as much as the county needs money to do a myriad of things, that this is going to be taking away from that. And the county and the state, the DNR, I think it's their responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Jerry Porter.
Good evening. My name is Jerry Porter. I live at E6397, 836th Avenue, Colfax. I did not sign the petition. And looking at the documents that you've published, I believe that the 4 items required for you to approve this have not been met. Some are debatable, some are not. So I really don't think you have a choice to approve it. I think that you cannot approve it, is my opinion. And yeah, I agree with a lot of the points that have been made against it. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have another person that would speak in favor of? Please come forward.
My name is Chuck Tack. I live at East 6171, 819th Avenue with my wife Leanne, and I'm for Lake District. And I'll try to make this short. And I'm going to be a little proactive here because it's come up in the past meetings and touched on a little bit with a couple of speakers. I'm your water tester on the lake. This is my 4th year. And what I do is every 8 days, once the ice goes out, I test for water clarity and water temperature in 3 different locations, all on Upper Tainer, 2 of them on Upper Tainer and 1 on the Hay River. Then at the end of the month, June, July, and August, I take physical water samples from 2 of those locations, send them into the DNR, and they analyze them, send them back to me, and then I compare them to the past couple of years. I'm also in my 6th year of keeping an Excel spreadsheet of the water conditions in my bay, and we live in the bay where the Northwest Landing is, and the conditions that are at my dock. On that spreadsheet, there's 11 columns: temperature, date, weather, water clarity, etc. So what's all this mean? I think I know the lake pretty well. And I can tell you 2 things. Number 1, Tainer Lake can be cleaned up. Number 2, we don't have to reinvent the wheel to do it. What the Lake District can do and will do is research, follow up, and copy successful programs that were done on other impaired waters. So It can be done. The lake can be cleaned up with the Lake District doing the managing. I'd like to say, hey, let's call a DNR. Can you come in Monday and clean up Taylor Lake? Well, it isn't going to happen. Who else are you going to call? Ghostbusters? It's up to us, and we need an organization to manage it. So I'm asking you supervisors to vote yes on the Lake District petition. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Mike Mullenbauer, if I'm saying that right. Please come forward.
My name is Mike Mulebauer, E5416-770. I'm supporting this Lake District. I attended one of the meetings that was out there. The group ended up proactively addressing a lot of the issues that were out there. They answered a lot of the questions. This was just to get the Lake District started and put into place. We need to do something about this lake. I've had the property for 20 years. I've gone up by the Red Cedar. I can't believe the amount of debris and sediment that's been put into the lake from the Red Cedar. It's unbelievable. Taking a look at these people want to do something about the condition. I do. I think everybody does. And what they ended up indicating that I understood and heard from the meeting was we'll have a voice, we'll vote on this. And if we want it, that's great. If there's something that we don't want as a group, we can vote against it. So I think there's need to be support. We need to do something about it. And I think they're doing the right things. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Kelly Kraus.
My name is Kelly Kraus. I live at E5287, 750th Avenue, Menominee, Wisconsin. I did not sign the petition. I was the individual Mr. Tom Blease mentioned, reference to the 10th meeting. I was approached by someone, and the first question I asked was, correct, what statute is going to be used with this? Number two was, what vehicle of taxation were you going to use to collect money? I saw a lot of him and haws, and I saw a lot of I don't knows, and I saw a lot of looking at the sky. So I was the person that he was identifying, and I didn't get any answers. I didn't get any follow-up. Mr. Bills mentioned on Tuesday after I spoke that he was the lead person in giving instructions to people. Some people fall through the cracks was kind of a response. But I want to make it clear. He didn't mention anything about giving information correctly to anybody so that they could give it to the residents to make decisions. He didn't clarify that, he specified that. The opening statement in the petition submitted, folks, reads, the Friends of the Red Cedar Basin is proud to submit this book containing the petition signed in support of Taylor Lake Rehabilitation District. The petition drive was conducted in accordance with Chapter 33. This is all dated July 14th. How do people know how to remove their name and that what they signed was legal? When petitioners are at their homes, collecting a signature on a hot day, and yes, there's green foam on the lake. Everybody's, yes, I'll be happy to help because I don't deny we need a solution. I feel for you guys having to make a decision. I don't wish this on anybody. I am not in favor of chapter 33. I think like Kirk mentioned, Mr. Zerline mentioned, and others have mentioned, there are other avenues to take. And I think that this has got the attention now of the public to take those. What bothers me the most is that in statute Wisconsin of this chapter 33 is petition number 3325. And here's what it reads. By law now. Withdrawing from petition, any landowner who is considered to have signed the petition under sub 1 may withdraw their petition if the landowner files a written notice of the withdrawal with the county clerk at least 10 days before the hearing under statute 3326. I really tried to find someone that would tell me that they were advised that this statute, this chapter was being utilized when they were approached. I asked directly and I couldn't get the answer. As pointed out, I could have called and asked, but you know what? When you've got some medical conditions going on, you can't make those calls all the time. I'm for the lake piece here, as I mentioned. The other thing I'd like to note is in reference to the flyer. Okay. It's documented in one of the PRD minutes that we have that this flyer was passed out. I would like everybody to be aware this flyer was hung on mailboxes. It was not mailed. Here's section 508.3.1.3 of domestic mail manual. No part of a mail receptacle may be used to deliver any matter not bearing postage, including items of matter placed upon, supported by, attached to, hung from, or inserted onto a mail receptacle. I would like you guys to help us, help the rest of us deny this piece and then turn around so that we can get further clarity. Thank you.
Thank you. Dick Lammers.
Good evening. It's Dick Lamers, E 6373, 836th Avenue, Colfax, Wisconsin. And thank you for allowing public comment to all the supervisors who voted for that. And I'm going to read this and hopefully you'll bear with me. My hope is that you will have listened to our voices and realize that creating a lake district for the boundaries that were determined will not solve the problem in it, specifically the phosphorus creating the blue-green algae. My belief is that the method in which the signatures were obtained were not transparent, legal, or ethical. The promises made to clean up the lake did not include a description of how that can be successfully completed, nor did it fully explain how property owners would be taxed. But as the previous speaker described, she did well in describing that. Excuse me, my focus will be on the broader scope of what this says to our community. If you pass this, you are telling Dunn County residents that the property owners included in this narrow definition of the Lake District own the water. State law describes the public trust doctrine. The public trust doctrine applies to all navigable waters, which are defined as any waterway on which it is possible to float a canoe or small watercraft at some time during the year. The public trust doctrine protects the people of Wisconsin rights to transportation and navigation, protection of water quality, recreational activities, and enjoyment of scenic beauty. And to me, the key point is the health of our community. I have a son who had a liver transplant. His surgeon told him, do not go in that water. So for me, it's personal and it's serious. And I wish each of you supervisors would realize how serious that can be. We all own the water. Roughly 45,000 people, whatever the population is of Dunn County,
and all state residents own the water. The roughly 100,000 people that live in the Red Cedar watershed are impacted by the quality of the water and need to be part of the solution. This Lake District does not count that. I live in the water described in the application. I did not sign the petition. I firmly believe that the only way to improve our situation long-term is to get everyone engaged in this, and it will take county government, state organizations, volunteers, and all taxpayers to contribute their resources. Over the 15 years since I moved here, I've attended state and local conferences, both of the major ag organizations meetings, county field days in both Dunn and Barron County, spoken at Barron County meetings, and tried to be an ambassador for clean water. But this isn't about me. My point is that everyone wants clean water. This narrow scope that is being put forth today will not succeed in making that happen. The water in the boundaries established turn over every 8 to 14 days. And I just verified that with the DNR this afternoon. So projects that concentrate on changing the makeup of it as though we were sitting on a pond don't make any sense at all. You've got to get people involved all the way up to the top of the watershed. People wonder why we look at Lake Monoman in the summer and don't see any boat traffic or water skiing. Why is the downtown a ghost town? Because the residents head north for clean water. The issue impacts our economy in so many ways that aren't easily detected. It is the student that comes during the summer visit and decides not to attend Stout because of the water. It is the industrial executive that tries to find a home on the lake only to decide to purchase one miles away to get away from the problems. And I know those people. Those were decisions that were made. It will take your support and financial backing of existing departments that have that as one of their responsibilities. Our Land and Water Department is clearly not being recognized for their efforts and accomplishments in this area. Last month, I attended a farmers group meeting that had over 60 people in the room. They talked about the latest techniques and how their work was making a difference. No-till, cover crops, precision, fertilizer applications, etc. But the most impressive were the speakers that showed the same phosphorus data charts that I use in recording the progress in the watershed. They were proud to share that the level of phosphorus has leveled and then slightly declined in the last 3 years. So to people who say nothing's being done, I can tell you a lot of things that are being done. Please do not allow this action to be approved. It will set the overall efforts of the community back by generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Betty Herman. All right. That exhausts the list of people that wanted to speak. Thank you all for your
I'd like to say something, if I may. I'd like to say something because you're supposed to go back and forth with girls and against that topic for it. So
well, hang on a second here, son. Sir, we've exhausted the 35 minutes, but I'm going to add another 15 minutes so that we can take the comments that want to be made.
Okay, my name is Grant Peisig. I live at E6203 819th Avenue on Colfax. Lived out on Tanner since 2009 when I moved back to town after going to school. At the end of the day, we're all neighbors in here. Whether you agree with me, I believe we should pass it. I think the majority voted for it, which is democracy. Okay, number one, it's not the county's job to go back and reverse a decision that was made. Okay. Number two is I hear about this taxation piece, and look, I don't like paying taxes either, pay plenty every year, but this is the most local form of government we could ever possibly have. And if you're somebody who's questioning how the money is going to be spent or how much you're going to be charging, you have just as much right as anybody else to run for the board to help make those decisions. But if we sit on our hands and do nothing, we shouldn't expect any positive change. Okay, so here, and I threw my hat in the ring to be part of the initial board. So if it passes and I get on it, this is what I would recommend as far as the taxation piece to eliminate fear of that. Is $1 for every 1,000 your home is worth. If your house is worth 400,000, it's $400 extra on your taxes. It goes all to the Lake District. If we do that, it's going to raise about $250,000 a year. And then we want to try to partner with the places like Dick was just talking about. I think all that stuff is really good. Well, let's add another $250,000 a year that's counted on every year so you can start to build a budget on equipment and a real plan to go after it. And maybe it does include going up the watershed and working with these other people. Or the $300,000 grant that you mentioned, that's great. Now it's 500,000. So if we could privately fundraise or get grants 250,000 and then have the $1 rule on your house value, that's $500,000 a year to go at this problem and go at it full steam. Okay, so if you own a $400,000 house, if we try this for 10 years, you got $4,000 into it. If it works at all, your property value is going up more than that. Now you are going to be taxed more, but you're also gonna be able to go to the bank and get a HELOC or sell it for a major profit and move somewhere else. You know, I mean, it's a business opportunity for all of us to own property on the lake to significantly increase our property values and make money off of the deal. Okay, so I know there was a lot of negativity about the potential for taxation, but if we have a reasonably minded board of our peers, which we're gonna have, okay, that's all gonna be voted on. I just don't see it becoming this runaway train where we're borrowing $10 million a year and levying your taxes and all of a sudden it's going up to $10,000 a year. That's not what it is. And so don't be afraid of the big bad beast. There's a lot of this. It's like chasing a ghost with, oh, these taxes. Well, there it is. I just laid out a simple plan for you. Everybody can do that math in their head. Okay, if it's $2 per 1,000 of your house, and it's a $400,000 house, and it's $800 a year. If you own a $400,000 house, you probably have $800 a year. I would sure think so. Okay? What's that? Okay, well then your house is gonna go up and double, so you can get a HELOC, or you can sell it and make a big profit. If we sit on our hands and do nothing, it's only gonna get worse. I lived down by Monoman when I was growing up as a kid. I've been around these lakes for 30 years. Every year it's been a gradual decline. The people up on the upper part of Tainer, they're not even going to be able to get a boat in and out of there. A lot of them can't already, and more of them, it's just coming on down from the sandbar. So Dunn County, what you need to be prepared for then is a whole boatload of people who lost their navigable waterway to come up and say, I'm not paying lake property taxes anymore. I sure as heck would be the first one in line if I was up there by like where Adam and those guys live. I'd be here banging on the door going, if there's 6 inches of water in front of my house, that is not lakefront taxes. I'm not doing it. So now you're going to lose money. If you approve this and we put a board together and we actually work hard and get something done, we all can make some money. The county can, we as landowners can, and then we've also got a nice lake to use in the middle of August rather than a manure pit.
Grant, can you?
Okay, that's all I got. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Leonard Johnson.
I'm Leonard Johnson, N7253, 540th Street. I've been on the lake most of my life. There was a period back around 1970 for a few years when there was commercial fishermen that came in and seined carp. But it only lasted a few years. They were hassled too much by the DNR. So they pulled their nets and have never been back. The carp that are in Tainer, or wherever they are, they like to wallow in the shallow, mucky waters, stirring that up constantly. And that's where the nutrients get in the water. Well, there's more nutrients in that, but they stir up the nutrients for algae bloom. Furthermore, the Tainer Lake watershed is huge. The Red Cedar River starts up in Sawyer County. There's a portion of Rusk County, Chippewa County that are in the watershed. Everything south of Highway 70 in Washburn County is in our watershed. All of Barron County, all of northern Dunn County. It's a huge area with an awful lot of agriculture. And certainly every farmer wants to keep all his nutrients on the field for the crops to use. But regardless of what they do, there's going to be runoff carrying nutrients into Tainer Lake, feeding the algae. If we could get rid of the carp, that would be the single factor that would greatly improve the lake. Because for those few years when commercial fishermen were doing that, the water got much better. Thank you.
I'll entertain one more speaker, that gentleman there.
I'm Ed LaVenture, E 5233 750th Avenue. We've lived on the lake since 1978. And like our daughter with special needs that has seizures, we'd take her in the water and help her swim. So the water is important. And I agree with the gentleman, the long-term thing is the whole watershed. I was involved with the watershed project in 1980 from Almena down to the Red Cedar. But it's a long-term thing. It's a long-term planning. And there needs to be I agree, the whole watershed project and not a single area here, because we can do a lot of things, but water still keeps coming from the north. So I think that's the best route continually to go. They've done work on it. They are working on it piece by piece. It just needs a more push. And I think like our county can do that, as our county already cooperates with 2 or 3 other counties for the health and human services that they provide. And they can do the same thing in this issue too. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, and thank everybody that spoke tonight. We have, I'm not going to entertain any more speaking. We went, pardon? Yes, we have, I think 3 or 4 letters, comments that were submitted by the public. Our deputy clerk will read those letters, and that will conclude the public comment section of our meeting.
Dear Dunn County Board Member, I thought it might be worthwhile to let you know a few things that have been going on behind the scenes on the subject of the proposed Lake District prior to the January 18 meeting. The proponents of the district have never been spelled out, either the specifics of any plan for lake cleanup or the potential cost of these activities. Lake residents have been left in the dark about these things. There was actually one public information meeting during the time the petitions were being distributed. The rest of the dates were simply sign-up opportunities staffed by people who knew little or nothing about proposed plans or expenses. Even the door-to-door petition drive was carried out by people with no idea how the lake might be cleaned up. The idea that all expenses related to lake rehabilitation can be funded through grants with a very small annual contribution by residents. Many signers were told they might need to spend $100 per year is unrealistic. A one-time treatment with alum, which could temporarily make the water cleaner, would cost between $400 and $1.155 million. The cost of dredging the entire lake could easily exceed $115 million. The one public hearing was supposed to have been preceded by a letter to all affected parties. I have spoken with Andrew Mersel, who indicated he mailed these letters, but I have yet to speak with any resident who received that notice. At this time, there is a great deal of disgruntlement among people who believe they have been railroaded and deceived. One person is attempting to organize a petition drive to stop district formation. Many are now concerned that they will not be able to afford any additional tax burden. Approval of the Lake District creates an additional government entity capable of assessing taxes. Once created, elimination of this entity becomes much more difficult. The statutes dictate that in order to vote at Lake District annual meetings, residents must be present. There is no provision for absentee voting. Given the number of residents included in the proposed district, along with the many out-of-town property owners, the actual number of people able to attend these meetings is very limited. The Lake District in Rice Lake had historically had decisions made by a very small group of individuals. I don't think this proposed district will be much different. The bottom line to me is that I believe the process has progressed this far based on, at best, a lack of transparency and at worst, deception. I have attached a copy of the flyer to illustrate the way the proposal was presented. I think if the facts regarding plans and funding were presented, many residents would not have signed the petition. I could be wrong about this. The only way to truly know is full disclosure. Residents might sign after making an informed choice related to their individual budget circumstances. Given the flaws in the process to date, it is possible there are Lake District property owners who have no idea they will be seeing a new category of taxation on their tax bill in the future. In spite of the sincere efforts of the district proponents, there may be many property owners who are unaware this entire proposal is taking place. The fact that the public hearing notices may or may not have been mailed, at least not received, parentheses, is especially disturbing. If this is a one-time error, it erodes faith in the Lake District formation process. If it is a more common occurrence, this is of great concern, since many of the county's interactions with the public require mailed notice according to statute. I am not against efforts to clean up the lake. I simply believe it is in the best interest of all residents to know the facts in order to make informed decisions that have budget implications. Please consider this as you vote on January 18th on the formation of the proposed Lake District. Respectfully, Tim Stanton. Dunn County Board of Supervisors. Thank you for considering the formation of a Tainer Lake Rehabilitation District to address the ongoing appearance of problematic cyanobacterial blooms. There is no question that reduction of the blooms would benefit residents and visitors with interest in clean waters here in Dunn County. My family and I are definitely in favor of a thoughtful plan that addresses reduction of cyanobacterial blooms in our waterways. Both nitrogen and phosphate influx into the lake is likely involved in this problem. However, it is not clear that the actual source of these nutrients has been identified or that practical ways of addressing the problem of cyanobacterial blooms exist at this time. It appears that strategies of management such as removal of lake sediment or depopulation of a particular species of fish cannot improve the situation. Furthermore, it appears that cyanobacterial blooms are appearing in the Red Cedar Basin far upstream of Tainer Lake. Therefore, I urge you to diligently seek scientific information that identifies the nutrient sources leading to the cyanobacterial blooms before ineffective lake management operations are engaged. Sincerely, Jim and Nancy Burritt. Okay. I am writing to encourage you to vote against the establishment of a Tainer Lake Rehabilitation District. Your press release says that the board is required to issue an order establishing the district if 4 criteria are met. 1, that the petition is signed by the required number of owners. 2, that the district is necessary. 3, that the public health, comfort, convenience, necessity, or public welfare will be promoted by the establishment of the district. 4, that the property in the district will benefit by the district's establishment. None of these criteria have been met, so the board should not approve the formation of the district. 1, it may be true that slightly more than 50% of the property owners signed the petition, meaning that almost 50% did not sign. The methods used by the petition organizers was deceptive. They did not disclose that the district would have the ability to raise property owners' taxes. All they ever kept talking about was the ability to receive more grant money. Had the properties been, or property owners been aware that their taxes would increase, other that the Friends of the Red Cedar base, most people would not have signed. If you vote to establish the district under these false pretenses, there will be a lot of bad blood between neighbors on Tainer Lake. Please require that the petition organizers obtain the necessary signatures via honest methods. If they fully disclose the taxation consequences of establishing the Lake District and still obtain the required signatures, then vote to pass the district. There is no hurry. 2, while some maintain the district is necessary, establishing it will do nothing to improve Tainer Lake water quality until water quality to our north in the Chetek chain of lakes is improved. All that green just runs into our lake. There are endless other problems to our north that need fixing before anything will change on Tainer. Public health, welfare, etc., will not be improved by the establishment of the Lake District until water quality to our north is improved. Nothing will change on our lake. 4, no property on our lake will benefit by the establishment of a Lake District, as nothing on our lake will improve until the water quality in our headwaters is improved. Our Lake District can't fix that. In summary, the signatures to obtain a slight 50% majority were obtained fraudulently. The organizers should be required to obtain the signatures via honest methods, fully disclosing the tax consequences of establishing the district. No matter how much money the district would spend on improving water quality, it will have zero beneficial impact until the water quality to our north is improved. All that green in the Chetek Lake just runs into Tainer. Sincerely, Scott Jasper, Tainer Lake property owner. To whom it may concern, I have attached a document to voice my concerns and no against the Tainer Lake Rehabilitation District Charter 33. I was not informed of the public meeting or charter. Actually, I found out through a neighbor who also found out by work of mouth. Due to that, I will not be able to attend physically. James Raychick. Subject, taxation without representation. Tainer Lake District Rehabilitation District, Chapter 33. Deny or approve the establishment of the Tainer Lake Rehabilitation District on 1/18/2023. To Supervisors of Dunn County. Wow, this is 2023, where we have a corrupt federal and state governments and now local. I was communicated late Tuesday night, January 17th, 2023, about this very disturbing information about Tainer Lake Rehabilitation District Charter 33, which I am totally against. I had to very quickly put this together to meet all the deadlines and unfortunately cannot attend meeting in person. As a property owner actually on Lake Tainer for over 40 years, I have observed many things. This is the best one to date to establish a Lake District Charter, AKA Lake Tainer HOA, without being informed. Items to take note. 1, this has been attempted multiple times over the years. 2, secretly and purposely not communicating Tainer Lake Rehabilitation District Charter 33. 3, absolutely no communication to a taxpayer that will be directly affected. 4, including non-lake owners and petition to achieve requirements. How many signatures are actual people that will be burdened with special taxes, unlimited financing against properties, the reevaluating of property/parcel for all additional lake project financing, et cetera, ? There are many government and volunteer avenues that are present and in process to complete the exact same task without giving a HOA an open checkbook, the ability to tax for PET projects and to discriminate against property owners. This all has the recipe for legal actions to be initiated, more burden on the local taxpayer. Plain and simple, I was not informed. My neighbors weren't informed. How can that be? As a property owner for over 40 years, plus not be informed. I received a tax bill every year. Neighbors receive a tax bill every year. Secretly burdening only lakefront property and parcel owners through automatic annual levy taxation and unlimited financing powers, which are all assessed against only select residents, properties, and parcels is taxation without representation and discrimination. Once again, I state this all has the recipe for legal actions to be initiated. Such a Wisconsin statute proposal and enactment has no place in Dunn County or on Lake Tanner, absolutely none. There are many retired people on set incomes, young families, and vacation homes on the lake that are struggling in the current economic burden our current federal and state governments have created. Now the local government wants to follow in their steps with a question mark. We don't need a big city HOA to complete the same tasks that there are current avenues for. Regards, James Raychick. That is it.
That concludes the public comment section of the meeting.
Well,
What is your name, sir?
John.
Well, we don't have a record of it, I'm sorry, at this time. Pardon?
It was here in the visitor seat.
Can we read it then?
So, yep, it came to the public.
We're looking for it. I think we found it. Hang on here. Okay, no.
Kristen has to send it. I'll send it to you. Okay.
No, I don't think so. But thank you for bringing that up. Good thing other people are running these computers. I'd be at a loss there if I had to do all this maneuver myself. So. Maybe it's just easy for you to read it, Chris.
I can.
Have you got it yet?
Yes, I have it now.
All right, here we go.
Yes. Okay,
I think we're in business.
okay, here we are. We are opposed to the formation of the Tanner Lake Rehabilitation District. The people who were approached to sign the Tanner Lake Rehabilitation District petition should have been provided with accurate information when the petition was presented to them. The information on the petition was general and only presented, quote, Tanner Lake is in desperate need of help and closer management. We suggest information should have been provided on the petition such as a feasibility study determining the ability to clean up the lake at a local level, the projects that would be implemented, and the actual cost to landowners in the district. Also, as referenced in the petition, what are the opportunities to improve how the lake is used by patrons to improve safety for everyone's enjoyment? A petition stated, a lake district will improve the possibilities for funding and grants to help alleviate the cost of needed rehabilitation projects. There was no mention in the petition about property tax increases. Is there a reasonable doubt that this petition process was flawed in that many lake property owners were not made aware of the actual long-term consequences of signing the petition? One, creation of an additional taxing authority over the Lake District property owners. This additional tax will continue year after year. Two, this exclusive group of property owners will bear the planning, work, and costs of the cleanup solution. Three, the designation of Lake District will impact the buying/selling of real estate. To summarize, per dnr.wi.gov documents, when you purchase land on the edge of one of Wisconsin's lakes or rivers, you are buying property on the edge of a public park. Wisconsin's waters belong to all of us. Therefore, we feel that all residents who enjoy Tanner Lake should be responsible for the lake cleanup solution. Thank you, John and Margaret Fuller.
Thank you, Deputy Clerk. That concludes the public comment section of our meeting. The next order of business, and thank you all for attending and for your comments. I appreciate it, pro and con. The next order of business is appointments, of which we have none this evening. Next order of business is report of the county manager 8A, purchase orders over 40,000.
Good evening. The purchase orders over 40,000 should be relatively self-explanatory. Are there any questions about those? I believe they're all highway except for one extension, UW extension purchase. No questions? Okay. Okay,
I'm looking at the second page on the purchase orders for 40,000. This has to do with the sheriff's department. The purchase of a Chrysler Pacifica 2022 for $42,677. I was under the assumption that the county is leasing most of our vehicles and wondering why the purchase, in tight budgetary times that we're using our cash rather than doing a lease.
I do not believe that there's anybody from the sheriff's department present or online. I don't believe. I will need to check Supervisor Lino and get back to you.
Well, the problem is if we approve this, then we're approving the purchase of that rather than doing the lease.
And there is not action called for on your part with regard to this. This is just part of the report.
Okay,
So
all right.
you do not have to take action on it. What I would say is I do know that there are some leases and there are some purchases which do happen. Some of it depends on the availability. Some of it depends on the use. The purchase availability, some of it depends on the use of the vehicle, but I don't know specifically about this one. So let me check and I'll report back.
All right, well, and that's fine. Just the only other situation is that was this in the budget? Was this purchase part of the budget?
Again, off the top of my head, I don't know.
All right, okay. I'll let you off the hook there.
Yes.
Didn't they not buy them actually? Did they buy them?
Supervisor Leno, to answer your question, yes, it was approved. We approved it earlier. This is just detailing purchase orders or things done over 40,000.
Okay, well, I really think the question that I have is that rather than a purchase, why wasn't it leased?
And county manager will have that answer for you next time.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you for your question.
Yeah.
All right, second item in my report is, I just wanted to give you a heads up. So prior to COVID precautions and our moving to a Zoom format for our meetings for a number of months, actually probably well over a year, the departments each submit an annual report and the department heads would do a report to the county board on that report. That went by the wayside or was paused during our Zoom meetings. And so we'd like to reinstate the use of that time in a little bit different format. So as the department heads move through their annual reports over the course of the next year, they will spend a brief period of time, each of them, so you have an opportunity to meet them, see who is leading each of the departments, and then they will provide a report out on one success or accomplishment of their organization over the past year, as well as a little bit deeper dive or a highlight into one program area or service that they provide. Obviously, that will not allow us to get through all of the services provided by the county, even in a year, maybe not even in 5 years, but it will provide an opportunity for a little bit more in-depth information on your part regarding some of the services that are provided. So I just wanted you to know that we won't have any of those this month. The board report that we have this month is from the Dunn County Housing Authority, which is not a county department, but is funded by county dollars. And then lastly, our CFO, Beata Haug, is going to come up and do a really brief presentation for you around what you can expect as you're going in the committee meetings regarding the financial reporting in 2023.
That's on. Good evening. Thank you for having me. First, I just want to give you a little backdrop, really short backdrop about why we've taken this approach. we have restructured our financial reporting, what it looks like and how it's presented to the board. Our primary goal here was to achieve a few main points. One is allow management to have more of hands-on oversight of their financials. That's easy to understand, easy to read and access. Also allowing them to see their day-to-day activities. So that is their expenses and their revenues. Most importantly is to really enhance timeliness of our data. Accuracy, is everything coded that it should be? Are we missing invoices? Is everything getting billed on time? And then also most important is transparency, transparency with management, also partnering up with finance and transparency with our standing committee and our boards. And most important part, which will allow us to be proactive versus after the fact. I think as we go into the budget, this will allow us to understand or have a better insight as to how we anticipate to end the year. Identify any area of concerns that we can be proactive versus waiting at the end of the year to find out we're running a deficit, which in this case, a lot of times might be too late. So I will share a screen to give you an example of what that report looks like. I'm navigating through these buttons here. Share screen. Okay, what am I sharing? Well, you can't see my screen, can you? I'm sorry.
Your share screen on. Click share screen.
Oh,
Hold on.
I guess I don't have the power, but I will in just one moment.
Do you know?
All right. All right, what I'm presenting to you is actual data. And this is from finance alone. So here I broke it down into county manager, finance, which is my team. And I've also separated from county general. So I built this report presenting you as an example to then identify how are we using this report. So here's report, what we're actually, I want to provide and see, give an idea as to where did we end previous year? What is our budget? Where we are to date. That's our third year to date. The important items I focus on with the management is how are we doing and how we're projecting to end the year. And our variances. So that very last column is where I like to look at, because that gives me a higher level how a department is anticipating to end the year. I also broke this out for different revenue sources to let management know, is that a grant? Is that miscellaneous? Is that levy? And if it is, what is that levy? Also, I separated expenses from salaries and fringes from operating expenses. So then they can see how they're performing in those areas, favorably or unfavorably. So we're looking at revenue at the very on the bottom there. I'm going to take you to the finance, which is this area right here. Okay. So this is of course our budget. Our budget is balanced. That's why you see 0. Next one over the very last column is really taking our budget and the difference from our projections. And at this point, I'm showing 239 to the good. I want to take time to explain this because some of these parentheses can be a little confusing. To clarify, I'm going to skip over to the bottom of this page. On the bottom there, I provided footnotes that's part of this report to remind the reader as to what are some of these assumptions behind these projections or any key items that we want to bring to your attention. In this case, I put it a star that says budget versus projections. So if we see a positive number, that means it's a surplus. if we see a negative number, that's a deficit. And I'm referring to this very last column. The other asterisks I also provided, if there's anything unique that needs to be brought to the attention, which in this case will be ARPA. When we're showing in, because I separated the funding sources and you see interest on an investment. Typically, our investment and interest, those you'll see at the treasurer side. But this is really different, unique from the treasurer side. This identifies that this interest is specific to our ARPA money that we've received and our opioid settlement that we received. Also, I provided projection methodology. This is a really standard and high level. Keep in mind that this is not all size fits all, but majority of the population. So our wages, how it's projected in here, it's based on 26 pay periods. With the exception of health insurance is how we pay them. We might have multiple pay periods in 1 month, but we'll always have the same premium payments due each month for insurance. So that's the only exception. The other assumption is made that all our invoices that come in always have one leg, meaning that if I'm paying invoices in January, majority of those invoices are for services that that were rendered in December. So we're calling it 1 month leg. And that's not all the cases. But I put this methodology here and I work with each manager so they look at line by line to then make their projections. So like I said, majority of it's in that workbook, I built in a formula for them, but it's ultimately their decision. It's their department. I'm there as a partner and provided this tool as a guide to help us understand how we're doing financially, how we're performing. Are there any concerns that we should be addressing? And of course, being transparent to our committees to let them know if there's anything we need to be aware of. So if we're running a deficit, I would rather give the board an idea a little bit sooner versus just waiting till the end, and I don't like surprises. Now, this doesn't mean that we have a crystal ball and we're going to project right on. Okay, so management is looking at these on a regular basis. As far as their standing committees, they're reporting this report. It looks very similar. All of them look just like that. They're just different dollars and different, some cases, funding sources. But they're all very uniform. So what you see here should not be any different than you would see in other standing committees if you're part of them. So that was our goal, is to be all on the same page. And also it's important to note is behind the scenes, who's responsible for what? Finance is dedicated to making sure that that data is provided for management. We own that. So we've identified that in our operational process that finance will be the one responsible for providing the data, leaving and uploading into these workbooks, which then leaves the management to focus on projections. Any questions? Any comments or anything else I can clarify? Ultimately, this goal too is to not only allow short-term forecasting, but I want to take this to the next level, which is long-term. And that's my future state. I want to be able to continue on with this uniform reporting and build on it. As we roll into 2023, we'll include 2023 at any given time. Management will have 5 years worth of data that they're working with to do analysis. Right now, our system is a little complicated. It has a lot of data, but a lot of times it's hard to extract that data. So this is what that tool is for. Ultimately, we'll use this for budget. Budget comes, we'll have more in-depth data. Another thing I want to mention earlier, I mentioned about timeliness, accuracy, because if we're going to rely this on forecasting long-term, that's important that our data is as accurate as possible. I know that was probably more than 3 minutes.
Beata doesn't know
But
how
I
to
get
do
really
it.
excited.
I told her slow and simple. So I'm not sure that was accomplished, just teasing you.
She's my boss. I'm sweating, but if you have any questions, please let me know.
Supervisor Kinnear.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am glad that it's all going to be the same. That's great. I don't get why some of the revenues are parentheses, which, and so forth. But perhaps now isn't the time for me to ask that. I just want to let you know that I'm confused about it. I think perhaps in one of my committees, it would be a better place, especially given the length of tonight's meeting.
You know, I thought about that. I really did. I've looked at it too, and I says, you know, this might be a little confusing. You see one column positive, one negative, what it's all about. How the
But I-
data comes out of the system.
But I can wait.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay, good.
and
All right,
I
all
will
right.
get it in the committee, but I wanted to let you know that I'm probably not the only one that's confused by that. Okay,
It's a work
and
in
we'll get it
progress.
taken care of. Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you.
it's work in progress and feedback is always welcome.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you, Beata. And
Thank
you never want to ask a numbers nerd the numbers question. I can tell you that right now. Thank you very much.
So one thing that Beata did not necessarily maybe fully articulate was part of the goal of what the workbooks that she's built will allow us to actually take the entire county's budget and roll it up. Previous to this, we haven't had that ability. Our financial system will give us a year to date, but it doesn't have the ability to do the projecting. And so this will allow us to hand manipulate those numbers to do projections, so that I know the question came up at one of the committee meetings, if not more than one committee meeting, about when we would have an idea about whether we needed to borrow money or not. This will allow us to look at those figures in June and July and August and know where we're at trending for the year. One last little comment: as you begin to see these reports in your committee meetings, January, February, and March, even April and into May, data isn't particularly helpful when it comes to projections. If you think about the fact that in January, literally there isn't any information because we've paid very few bills in January for January. By February, we're paying January's bills. So if you run a report at the end of February, you really have only captured January's costs and then kind of on out. So it's really about mid-year that we actually start to get decent data for projecting. Does allow us to see what our actual expenses are in each of those months, but it doesn't allow us to do well with the projecting piece of it until a little bit later in the year. But this will be an invaluable tool for us to have a much better point in time picture of our financial situation than we've had up until this point in time with our financial system.
Supervisor Rogers.
Thank you for the effort of more transparency and more forthcoming with a lot more of the numbers and information, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Is that
Don't know if she's going to say more.
There you go. All right, one thing I want to notice is what you will see is on a quarter basis. Right, We're-
For the full board.
yeah, for the full board, our standing committees will see this on a regular, on a monthly basis. What we were bringing forward to the county board would be on quarterly basis. So we're not going to bore you this with every month. All right, thank you.
Is that it, Chris?
Yes.
All right. Yeah, I have Supervisor Bjork.
For the county manager, I was reading in the paper where Eau Claire County got a nice settlement from the drug companies because of the opioids. I just wonder how Dunn County was doing with our settlement, our litigation on that.
So all of the settlements have been finally decided. There were 3 rounds of settlements. One was for the manufacturers, one was for the distributors, and one was for the retailers of the pharmaceuticals. And all of those have been settled. The lawsuits have been settled. The payouts for them are of varying lengths of time, any place between a short 5 to 7 years, all the way up to 20 years, 19 to 20 years. Some of the companies that have been ordered to pay a settlement have decided to pay more money up front and faster to be done with the process in which they need to make those payments. So there are varying levels of payouts, varying payout schedules for those various settlements. However, Dunn County has received to date payments from 2 of the 3 settlements for the first 2 to 5 years. So one of them was for 5 years and one of them was for 2 years payments, and they have totaled just a little over $200,000. And there is a committee put together of Department of Human, chaired by the Department of Human Services Director, Paula Winter, including Public Health, the Sheriff's Department, CJCC, looking at coming forward with some ideas about how to best spend that money within the parameters of what's allowed.
Sure. I'm just gonna add as the attorney. Not all of the settlements are final. There are some that are proposals with CVS, Walgreens, Walmart, Teva, and Allergan that are coming forward. Probably there's going to be a decision to be made whether to accept settlements from those defendants in the next couple of months. But there have been settlement proceeds received already.
Okay, all right. We're gonna take a short 5-minute break. Anybody that has to use the restroom, follow me. All right, here we go. Next order of business is the reported departments, Dunn County Housing Authority. Thank you, young lady.
Okay, can everyone hear me good? Yeah. Good. Just a little bit of background as far as what is the Dunn County Housing Authority? Oh, sorry. Hi. I'm Tammy July Lover. I am the Executive Director of the Dunn County Housing Authority. It's been such a long night. I thought everybody knew me. As far as a little bit about what is a housing authority, the state law establishes a housing authority in every municipality. When a municipality finds that there is a need for a housing authority, then they declare the need by resolution. Once a resolution is adopted, the housing authority becomes a separate legal entity. It is then overseen by the governing body that of the municipality that created it. Somewhere in the 70s, I don't know have the exact date, but Dunn County petitioned the state to form the Dunn County Housing Authority, and that's how we became to be. So the Dunn County Board of Supervisors chair is then responsible for the appointment of a 5-member board of commissioners that operates the housing authority for the county. And that's kind of the relationship and what brings me here. I submitted my annual report as part of your packet, so I'm not going to go over that entire report, but I'm just going to kind of explain a little bit. I was told that there's a lot of new people on the board, so just going to kind of explain a little bit about what we do, and then if there's any questions, I'd definitely answer any questions. So a little bit about the 2 programs that the Housing Authority operates. We operate what's called a Housing Choice Voucher Program, mostly referred to as Section 8. And then we also have an optional case management program called the Family Self-Sufficiency Program that we also operate. So first off, the Housing Choice Voucher Program, and a little bit about what that is, and what we do. That is a rent subsidy assistance program. Dunn County residents that are at 50% of the county median income or lower are eligible to apply for that program. How it works is the participants have to locate their own housing. They pay 30% of their gross income towards that housing, and then the housing authority pays the remainder of the expenses, and it's paid directly to the landlord. We served 84 different households our last fiscal year. with an average of 71 households per month. We have served an average of 67 households per month this current fiscal year. We have 2 more months of our current fiscal year. And the program isn't funded at 100% of the actual need, but we are currently expending 100% of the funds that we are receiving. And we continue to strive to continue to serve or to expend 100% of the budget. And then as far as the family self-sufficiency program, that optional case management program that I talked about, how that works is the voucher holders that are interested in enrolling in that program, they meet monthly with a case manager and they set goals towards self-sufficiency. We are currently have 5 households that are on the family self-sufficiency program. One of the mandatory goals of that program is they must seek employment, and it's suitable to, we don't dictate exactly the amount of hours or what the employment, it's based on their particular skills and work history. Other goals that we work on is resume building, education, transportation, credit and budget counseling, other job training. And each person on that program, they have individual goal plans tailored to whatever they have to accomplish or feel that they want to accomplish to gain self-sufficiency. We usually have 1 graduate per year. And I did have in the packet, I did have include a success story from this last year. We just had somebody graduate from the program, and while she was on the program, she actually started the program with no credit score, mostly because of having a history of homelessness and some other barriers in her life where she didn't have most of her bills in her name for a long period of time. So she had no credit, and she increased her credit score by, it's in my report, but I think it's like 600 or something. So she just, she accomplished some big things in the 4 years that I worked with her and graduated from the program. And that's just kind of an example of about once a year, we have someone successfully leave the program. Many of our participants on that program purchase new cars during their enrollment, complete their post-secondary schooling during their enrollment on the program. It really varies depending on what their goals are. But like I said, our 1 graduate of this year is in your packet that was provided. As far as some benefits of the program, the Housing Choice Voucher Program offers low-income residents the ability to receive rent assistance for decent, safe, sanitary housing. Often low-income residents are forced to live in substandard conditions because of underemployment or lack of employment. Many become homeless at one time during their lives. This program provides a safety net for low-income residents and allows them the opportunity to improve rental history, decrease their risk of homelessness. The community benefits greatly by generating revenue for the landlords, improving rental housing stock, and improving the stability of local residents. Being a parent, one of the biggest effects of this program that I have noticed through the years that I didn't think of prior to being a parent or prior to having this job is how it affects the education of our children. Just the stability of a family, allowing those children involved in that family to grow and be successful in their education is huge. In addition, stability also, of course, like I said, provides the security and safety to those families. And then the family self-sufficiency, that benefit is just to provide development, budgeting skills, and employment growth for the voucher holders to allow for turnover in the program. And just a little bit about, I took it way back because I was told there was new people, so I took it back to kind of what stuff that I said 5 years ago. So just going back to the roots of explaining a little bit about the program, because I've had these questions from some new folks in the past, what happens without the housing authority? What happens if you don't get the support from the county and that type of thing? And just a little bit about how the HUD process works is if we didn't have the administrative revenue for the program, of course, there'd be reduction in staff hours. And eventually, if you don't meet your report numbers from HUD, they sanction your program and eventually loss of the program and increase in homelessness in the county. We do through the program, there's approximately $400,000 in federal funds that come into Dunn County to help the residents. So that's why we need the support. And the process is that HUD says if this municipality creates you, then they should support you. That's great that they put that, on paper, but that doesn't mean you have to. And we realize that. And so that's part of coming here every year and saying, strongly appreciate the relationship and the support of the county so that we can be successful in what we do. So thank you. Any questions?
Any questions from any supervisors? Supervisor. Go ahead.
A question I didn't see in our packet, your report. Did that get sent out to us?
It was supposed to.
It was supposed to.
I guess just,
Sure, Coco.
okay, thank you.
Thanks, Luke. I drew a blank there. I couldn't remember your name for a minute. Thank you very much for your report. Any other questions? Hearing none, I think this is an example of, oh, pardon me, Supervisor Calabrese.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the report, Tammy. Two questions. How many people are on your staff? And how do the people in public in need of this assistance find out about it?
It's me and just me.
All right.
And we do have a website, dunncountyhousing.org. And then I also try to collaborate with local resources and part of 211. And I think there's 2 or 3 other websites that we're on as far as if you do like low income housing search. We're connected with those. You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
The next order of business is number 10, consideration of resolutions, reports, and ordinances from the standing committees. 10A, Planning, Resources, and Development. 10A1, ordinance approving a zoning map amendment, Lot 5 of CSM 636, Brian and Deborah Shefcheck, Town of Dunn. Speaking to the ordinance, Supervisor Quinn.
Yes, so this was, had a PR&D committee reviewed this. We held a public hearing and the recommendation from staff and then supported by the committee was, and also by the town board, was that this is an appropriate rezone of a property that actually should be zone commercial. And this would clarify that. So we recommend that the board approve it.
We need a motion and a second to approve the ordinance.
I'll move.
There's and a second. Supervisor Rogers. Any discussion, questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Motion carried. Nix. What's the matter? Oh, okay. Next order, 10A2. Proposed Taylor Lake Rehabilitation District order. Speaking to that, Supervisor Quinn. We have a motion to approve the
order.
The order. Is there a second? Supervisor Wiltie seconds. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion or explanation? You want to speak to it?
Yeah, well, this is a complicated process and we had really, really good discussion here and we have had in the PR&D committee over the last, well, it seems like years, but it's actually been 6 months. So, but through that whole process, our staff at Land Conservation has been and elsewhere in the department has been very helpful and supportive in developing this order in particular. And so I think it would be good to start out with, I'd ask if it would be okay to have Chase Cummings, our County Land Conservation Director, come up and provide some summary and overview of the project for people.
Certainly, that's in order. Chase?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Chase Cummings. I'm the Dunn County Conservationist with the Land and Water Conservation Division. As a staff member of the Environmental Services Department and the manager of a division that typically deals with land and water resource management, I, along with many other county staff, assisted the Planning, Resource and Development Committee and you, the County Board of Supervisors, in processing the petition to establish the Tainter Lake Rehabilitation District. In accordance with the Wisconsin State Statutes, Chapter 33, specifically Subchapter 4, Public Inland Lake Protection and Rehabilitation Districts, you have a decision to make tonight on whether to establish the proposed Tainter Lake Rehabilitation District. You should have found in your packet for tonight's meeting an order creating the Tainter Lake Rehabilitation District, which also includes the district's legal description, a list of parcel identification numbers within the district, and a map of the district. Also in your packet is a public hearing report regarding this matter. This is the same report that was presented to you at your October 19th, 2022 meeting. A brief history and timeline that has brought us here tonight. On July 14th, 2022, the county clerk received a petition to establish the Tainter Lake Rehabilitation District. Per Chapter 33.24 of the Wisconsin State Statutes, the county board may establish a district. Per Chapter 33.25, before any county board may establish a district, a petition requesting establishment shall be filed with the county clerk and must be signed by persons constituting 51% of the landowners or the owners of 51% of the lands within the district. The county clerk reviewed the submitted petition received on July 14th and verified that 53.76% of the landowners within the district signed the petition. On July 27th, 2022, the county board appointed the Planning, Resources and Development Committee to conduct a public hearing. The public hearing was held on August 9th, 2022. Per Chapter 33.26, upon receipt of the petition, the county board shall arrange a hearing to be held no later than 30 days from the date the petition was received and shall appoint a committee to conduct the hearing. In accordance with the statute, notice announcing the hearing was published in the Dunn County News as a Class 1 notice. The notice was also mailed to all property owners within the proposed district as listed on the 2021 tax roll. Additionally, the county clerk confirmed that social media posts were also made to provide notification. At this hearing, all interested persons were allowed to offer sworn testimony as to the necessity of the proposed district and to whether their property will be benefited by the establishment of the district. It should be noted that per Chapter 33.25, Parent 5, any landowner who was considered to have signed the petition may withdraw from the petition if the landowner files a written notice of the withdrawal with the county clerk at least 10 days before the date of the hearing. On October 19th, 2022, in accordance with the statutes, the PR&D committee presented the required public hearing report to the county board. It was at that meeting that the county board referred the matter back to the PR&D committee to develop a draft order creating the Tainter Lake Rehabilitation District and to nominate representatives to the initial board of commissioners. The county board is required to appoint 3 owners of property within the district, at least one of whom is a resident of the district, to serve as commissioners until the first annual meeting of such district, and appoint 1 member of the county board to serve on the district board of commissioners. As I stated earlier, the public hearing report is included in your packet. In accordance with the timelines established in state statutes, you are required to make a determination tonight. If the board finds that the petition is signed by the requisite owners, that the proposed district is necessary, that the public health, comfort, convenience, necessity, or public welfare will be promoted by the establishment of the district, and that the property to be included in the district will be benefited by the establishment of the proposed district, the board, by order, shall declare its findings, shall establish the boundaries and shall declare the district organized and give it a corporate name by which it will be known. In your packet is the order creating the Tanner Lake Rehabilitation District. The contents of this order were identified and recommended by the Planning Resources and Development Committee. The order includes the findings of establishment of the district, the boundaries of the district, which are more accurately defined by the attached legal description, the list of parcel identification numbers, and a map. The nominations of 3 individuals, all residents of the district, to serve on the initial Board of Commissioners, and the nomination for the appointment of Supervisor Zons to serve as District Commissioner. With that, I will turn it back over to you, Supervisor Quinn, to continue for the next steps.
Thank you, Chase. Maybe first of all, does anyone have any questions for Chase? No. Okay. That's a good summary of how we got here tonight, the sort of nuts and bolts of it. This has been a really hard process for everybody involved, I think. And I gotta say that despite the intensity of the emotions on the various sides, and there's more than 2 sides probably to the whole thing, people have for the most part remained very civil. As we get closer to the end, that gets harder to do, but it's, I think, been a good process. In the end, if other committee members, I welcome you to share your perspectives on this in our effort to give the board sort of a better view of what, or more thoughtful view of how we arrived at presenting this order to you. The key items were the 4 points that Chase mentioned. The first of which was a petition signed by the required number of landowners. Based on the petitions we received and the research by the county clerk, who went through every single one of them and identified them as appropriate or not, it seemed to us that they had provided the requisite number of signatures. Now, there were in the beginning, I think in the public comment, there were the hearing, I don't recall if anyone raised this question of, well, I signed, but I didn't know what I was signing. That has come up over the past 6 months from time to time. And it's something that's of concern. But based on what we know, we determined that the required number of signatures had been received, and as far as we knew and know, not a sufficient number of people have required. I don't think anyone, for example, has actually formally requested that their name be removed from the petition. I believe that I believe people when they say that's what they think, and that's how they really feel. From the committee's perspective, that isn't something that we were able to quantify. Number 2 was, is the proposed district necessary? I think we looked at that from several perspectives. One is, it's not, everyone here agreed, even if you're opposed to the district or in favor of the district, that the water quality on Lake Tanner is greatly impaired and something needs to be done about it. The establishment of a district specifically to do something about that seems like it could be a good idea, because the problem is so clear. And I think our feeling was that the statute provides a framework for how you establish that committee in a way that really allows for, it doesn't guarantee, but it allows for a pretty democratic process for deciding what projects to do and how much to spend on them. And that process, once the district is in place, really relies on the residents of the district being active and taking a citizenship role in it. Now, that may not happen. There's always that risk. But as a committee, I thought we can't judge whether that will or won't happen. We have to assume that's the way people will take it, that this is an opportunity to create a democratic process that can develop solutions potentially find some funding and move in a positive direction. That was, I think, our feeling. Number 3, public health, comfort, well-being, other things are protected. Again, I think water quality is the primary issue, both for, I mean, obviously for health concerns, which were pointed out tonight by several of the speakers, but also for property values and basically just the general use of the lake for recreational purposes, fishing, and other items. That if the Lake District can mobilize forces within that community to provide tools for improving those things, then it clearly will be a benefit to the public health, comfort, and well-being. Then the 4th was, will the property owners receive benefit by establishing the district? And I know several people that have argued both sides of that tonight, but our feeling was that that if the district was established and if it worked on providing practical and realistic solutions to the problems, that would have a positive effect on the property values. That was our perspective on it, and that's why we wrote the order that we did. I can certainly see why someone would have a different perspective, but that's what the committee looked at. So I don't know with that if there are any questions people have. Or Chase, you have any of the committee members have any comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Supervisor Quinn and Chase both did an excellent job of presenting it. I'd like to just take a little bit of time to comment on the comments we've received tonight and in the past. We had a public hearing, and that's different than public comments. And I just want to point out the supervisors, as you look and make your decision today, not everything that you heard tonight is consistent with what we heard in the public hearing. So keep that in mind. And I have no doubt the state law is flawed. And perhaps for whatever reason, the process may have been flawed. But the 4 criteria are what we have to make our decision on. I think Mr. Porter brought it up. He's the only one that mentioned it. But as you make your decision and you look at the 4 things that Supervisor Quinn just mentioned, that's what we need to make our decision on. That's the state law. And it's unfortunately the timelines and everything else are dictated to us. So as you go about making a decision, I encourage you to look at the facts and then look at those 4 criteria and see how that goes. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. Any other questions, comments from the board? Supervisor Morehouse.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I would just follow up on Supervisor Kinnear's comment to note that the documentation in your packet, board members, includes the full record of the public hearing. And that's the evidence on which the Planning Resources and Development Committee made its decision. So I would encourage everybody to take another look at those data.
Thank you, Supervisor Quinn.
Yeah, just to thank you. An additional point of information that might be helpful. One of the other tasks of that was assigned to the PRD as part of its developing the order was to select 3 representatives that would be part of from the general public, that would be part of the initial board, the board that will take over assuming if this was passed, or if it were to be passed, the initial board that would take over the initial organizing, that would be set, that would sort of decide what steps are next for the district to take. And one of those would be, establishing an annual meeting to formally elect supervisors for 2-year terms. We also had, here's what we did. We asked through social media and through outreach to the people who had provided testimony, for anyone who was interested in being nominated to serve on that initial board, to provide a short 3 or 4 question survey to us. And then we as a committee did a ballot where we chose what were the 3 top vote getters in those petitioners. And they were all, we had I think 10 people who submitted requests or willingness to be on the board, and they were all really, really good, high quality candidates. So in the order, there are 3 people who we selected to serve on that board. None of those people I don't think, were involved in the original organizing of the petition. And some of them have been opponents to it. So the committee is providing you with what we feel is a pretty balanced initial slate of directors. We also have the choice as a county, and the committee took this on, to appoint someone from the county to serve a 2-year term on the board, and that's a position that will be ongoing. So the entire time the district's in existence, the county will be having one person who we designate to represent us on that board. And we have asked, and he's accepted, Representatives Jim Zahns to serve in that role for the county as a county supervisor, but also as a longtime lake resident. So just in terms of what the order provides for some of the concerns that people have about, is this going to be, a process that's not controllable? To the degree the county can, we've tried to provide a real sort of thoughtful way to initiate the initial board.
Excuse me. Any other comments, discussion? We have a motion and a second. Supervisor Breslin?
Just, I would like to request a roll call vote.
Certainly. All it needs is a simple majority, and we've got a roll call. Excuse me, Supervisor Larry Bjork.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Really applaud the people for their heartfelt discussion on this, and CR&T and Chase and the hard work that's been done. And if you kind of like strip everything away, if there's going to be any changes to Lake Tainter, it's going to cost somebody some money. And I guess all we're talking about maybe tonight is who those somebodies are that's going to have to pony up some additional tax money to go along with the proposals that their board will come up with. We can't change what flows into Lake Tainter, or it's been hard to change it. I mean, I think people have made big efforts in the phosphorus and the nitrogen, and some of the testimony tonight made that very clear. So if we're going to do something about Lake Tainter, more than likely it's going to have to come from either the county or a lake district. Well, the county might benefit by having increased revenue in property tax, but the residents should, if there's any success at all, and we've got documentation back a number of years, should also benefit. It kind of strikes me, or for what I was saying, an example of a benefit that they don't have to pay for is, Lake Monoman, will benefit from the work done at Lake Tainter. And so far, they haven't been asked to participate in anything like that. I find it interesting, around the county, there's a number of billboards up advertising the Tainter Lake Ice Fishing Contest. Well, apparently blue-green algae doesn't seem to affect the ice fishing contest at Tainer. And people will spend money going to the ice fishing contest at Lake Tainer on because when you drive, there's opportunity. There's opportunity for economic development with Lake Tainer, but things have to change. And it's the young fellow that said that he was 83 and probably wouldn't see the change. Well, I would like to be able to see the change. I got a number of other things I'd like to take care of, but I would like to see Lake Tainer so that when I go for a ride on Lake Tainer in a pontoon boat, that it doesn't stuff up my allergies so much I gotta head to the shore because I can't. It's it causes an allergic reaction for me. I've been also a lake side owner that had to give up property. My wife and family had a property at Shell Lake at one time, and they solved their problem by putting in city sewer and water that went past our property. We couldn't afford it. We had to sell the place and it's gone. But I can still go to the campground at Shell Lake and the grandkids have a great time and great water because somebody came up with the money to correct a problem that was there and everybody knew it was there, but nobody really wants to pay for it. So it comes down to me is like, just like a good road that goes past your house. It's a wonderful thing. And if you've got clean water in front of your place, that's a wonderful thing. So you got to weigh the property value that you might receive in the future versus what it's costing you now to take that chance. Nothing's guaranteed, but I would support the resolution. I really don't want to, but if you're going to have these annual meetings, and that ought to be a good meeting to go to, by the way, if you like excitement. But you got to gamble that the dollars you spend will come back to you in increased value of your property. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, thank you. Any other comments by the board members? Hearing none. Supervisor Vandermeulen.
Have to vote against it because for a democracy project like this to work, there has to be a good sense of consensus. And I really don't hear that. So I think that works against it. And as a debate coach in a former life, if I look at the pros and cons in this, I think those who have objected to it and said that the plan isn't definite enough, isn't proved enough, are much more persuasive to me than the ones who say they've got something that's going to work. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? A roll, Supervisor Breslin.
I'm also going to have to vote no on this, mostly due to the fact that we sent it back for detailed plans. We got where the Lake District is, who's going to be on it, but we don't really have a plan of how to control the river. Everybody keeps calling it a lake. It is actually a reservoir. The water flows in, water flows out. Biomanipulation on a river, you have fish that are coming downstream. How are you going to keep the fish from entering the stream? So
I can answer that.
thank you.
No, we'll maintain order here. There's no comments from anybody except the board. This is board business and it's board comments. Thank you. Supervisor Breslin. All right, thank you. Okay. The other Supervisor Breslin.
One quick question, and this is for corporate counsel. It was admitted to tonight that the gaining the signatures, one of the means that was used was placing flyers on post boxes, which is illegal. Everyone knows that. If you've campaigned for a office, you know you don't do that. So does the county have any liability if the citizens of Tainer sue and we find that illegalities were used in gaining access or getting these signatures?
No, I mean, that the county doesn't have control over that conduct. If people violated the law, I think that's between, I mean, it's between them and those who enforce the law. If there are federal statutes, it would be the county doesn't have liability because if, say there's a vote and the vote is to approve the Lake Rehabilitation District, and it's subsequently learned that information was hung on the flags of mailboxes, the county is not going to have any liability for violations of law that may have been done by others.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Supervisors on.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to voice just a couple of comments, just because as far as I know, I think I'm the only county board resident who is actually located on Tainer Lake. And I've lived on the lake for 31 years now, something like that. And personally, as a lake resident, not totally in favor of this, of the district. However, I kind of trust in the judgment of the PR&D committee. They had the public hearings and had a sworn testimony. I really appreciate the comments from the folks that came here and commented, especially on the people who felt they were misled into signing petitions and felt that they wanted to rescind their signatures, which kind of as Chase outlined, there was actually a process for somebody to do that. But unfortunately, people did not take advantage of that process to formally rescind signatures. And it could be because people did not know that there was a process for doing that, or maybe they found out later that there was a bait and switch type of thing, or whatever the case might have been. However, as Supervisor Quinn outlined, and as Chase outlined, there, the 4 criteria have been met. And it's kind of unfortunate the way that it is. It's unfortunate that the petition writing or petition signature gathering wasn't overwhelming. I know that I was approached 3 times, and all 3 times I declined to sign it. And one of the people that when I questioned them about things were not as maybe as informative as some of the petition originators may have been. Still, as citizens, we're required to, do research and be part of it. And if this passes then tonight, one of the reasons that I wanted to serve on the board, the initial board, is that I am a Tainer Lake resident, and what happens on this lake is really important to me. And it's important that if this lake district goes forward, that I'm a skeptical person to be on that board, and I'm going to approach things skeptically. Some of the science that's been bantered around and kicked around is, frankly, some of it I think is junk science. And I think that, again, if you don't address the water upstream, I don't know how it's going to affect what is not a lake, it's a reservoir, because it's just 2 dammed up rivers. So, however, like I said, I trust in what the research, this is why we have standing committees, and this is why the PR&D committee was in charge of this. This is why they brought in Chase to do all the research, and I trust in the research that they've done, and that they are still in favor of this resolution. Thanks.
Thank you. Supervisor Gary Bjork.
This is going to be a hard vote for me. I think it's more of a watershed problem than a Lake Tainer problem. But then I've heard a lot of people say, at least the Lake District is doing something, you know, so. And to be honest with you, I haven't decided how I'm gonna vote yet. I don't know.
I think a lot of us are pondering that, to be honest about it, Supervisor Bjork. Any other comments? Yes, go ahead, Supervisor.
I feel the same way as Gary. I do. I'm also on the PR&D committee. People keep, well, Supervisor Zons, just said, I trust the PR&D committee. I think I'm voting no. The process, it stinks, right? And I don't think it's obvious that it's met all 4 criteria. I really don't. Is it necessary? I mean, I don't even know how to answer that, but we've got all these other organizations that are doing that work. The fine work that the Land and Water Conservation Division in Dunn County does, the DNR. They're addressing these problems. I don't know that it's necessary. I don't know how I'm going to vote, but I'm thinking of voting no.
Thank you. Supervisor Kinnear?
I have a question for Chase. Chase, is there a case law or whatever that defines better that second one where it says the proposed district is necessary?
You're asking a non-attorney a case law question.
Well, I wanted a shorter answer.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry, I know.
All right.
Either one of you, but I thought we talked about it in a PRD meeting, but either Nick or Chase.
I haven't been able to find any case law that interprets what necessary means. There aren't any objective standards to aid in your decision making. It involves the best interests of the community. I wrote this down because you don't hear stuff like this very often. In what the Wisconsin Supreme Court in a case they heard long ago about a lake district characterized or called a matter of public policy and statecraft. Statecraft. That kind of stuck with me. There really aren't objective standards. With respect to benefit, there is some case law that interprets that, and it talks about looking forward. As we look forward into the future, will the properties benefit? So it's not isolated to specific landowners adjacent to the lake or within the district, but overall, as a whole, will the properties benefit as we look forward? And that's about as good as it gets, honestly. The other 2 criteria are pretty straightforward. The number, the signatures and I think the boundaries or whatever. There just aren't standards. I've looked for cases interpreting the word necessary, and I can't find one.
Is that all right, Supervisor Kinnear?
Yes, thank you, both of you. Chase, is it correct? There's over 200 lake districts in the state?
I believe the current number is like 251.
Okay, thank you.
Seeing no other comments or hearing no other comments, it's time to get on with the vote. A roll call vote has been called for.
Supervisor Mike Rogers. Supervisor Mike Rogers votes yes. Supervisor Ron Score.
No.
Supervisor Score votes no. Supervisor Gary Steen.
Yes.
Supervisor Steen votes yes. Supervisor Mark Thomas.
Yes.
Supervisor Thomas votes yes. Supervisor Carl Vandermeulen. Supervisor Vandermeulen votes no. Supervisor Ann Vogel,
Yes.
Supervisor Vogel votes yes. Supervisor Wilsey,
Yes.
Supervisor Wilsey votes yes. Supervisor Witzel, Supervisor Witzel votes no. Supervisor Zans,
Elected,ly yes.
Supervisor Zans votes yes. Supervisor McCullough,
Yes.
Supervisor McCullough votes yes. Supervisor Bauer, Supervisor Bauer votes no. Supervisor Barrier,
No.
Supervisor Barrier votes no. Supervisor Gary Bjork, Supervisor Gary Bjork votes no. Supervisor Larry Bjork,
Yes.
Supervisor Larry Bjork votes yes. Supervisor Patrick Breslin,
No.
Supervisor Patrick Breslin votes no. Supervisor Sean Breslin,
No.
Supervisor Sean Breslin votes no. Supervisor Calabrese,
No.
Supervisor Calabrese votes no. Supervisor Tom Gilbert, Supervisor Gilbert votes no. Supervisor Hagan, Supervisor Hagan votes yes. Supervisor Hartung, Supervisor Hartung votes yes. Supervisor Headland,
Yes.
Supervisor Headland votes yes. Supervisor Johnson,
Yes.
Supervisor Johnson votes yes. Supervisor Kinnear,
Yes.
Supervisor Kinnear votes yes. Supervisor Keither,
Yes.
Supervisor Keither votes yes. Supervisor Lino,
Yes.
Supervisor Lino votes yes. Supervisor Morehouse,
Yes.
Supervisor Morehouse votes yes. Supervisor Prochnow,
Yes.
Supervisor Prochnow votes yes. Supervisor Quinn,
Yes.
Supervisor Quinn votes yes. Supervisor Robinson,
Yes.
Supervisor Robinson votes yes.
What's the count?
19 to 10.
19 yes, 10 no.
Yeah, the count is 19 yes, 10 no. The order is established. I want to thank everyone for their consideration. Not an easy decision for anybody here. Thank you. Next order of business is 10A3. Ordinance approving a zoning map amendment from GA to RS for Jesse and Lynn Nigaman. Speaking to that, Supervisor Quinn.
Yes, this is again was supported by staff and voted on by the committee and has town board approval. So we asking the county to approve it.
I would entertain a motion.
I'll move.
Is there a second? Supervisor Morehouse, we have a motion and a second. For this resolution, or excuse me, I'm in the wrong, for the zoning map amendment. Any questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Ordinance is approved. Next order of business is 10B, Executive Committee. Resolution amending the 2023 legislative agenda, volunteer drivers. Speaking of that, I guess, speaking of that is Supervisor Morehouse.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Of course, I have a very lengthy statement to make, which I will not make. So what this is about is that our volunteer drivers who provide Meals on Wheels and medical transportation and who receive a mileage stipend are being charged by their insurance companies as if they were Uber and Lyft, as if they were commercial transportation services. Of course, that harms the willingness of volunteers to participate in a service that's absolutely necessary and is only going to grow. So this legislative proposal asks the legislature to modify state law to prohibit an insurer from increasing the rate or denying or non-renewing the coverage of volunteer drivers. Seems like a sensible idea to me.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Same sign. Resolution carried. B2, resolution amending the 2023 legislative agenda, technical college funding. I think the legislative committee was presented with Terry, I can't think of his name. Terry Nichols has been on this for like 15 years. And he presented a pretty solid argument for us to pursue this. We felt this was the best way to go. So I would there was a motion. Pardon? Andrew.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Chair Steen, there was no motion and second made on the last revising the 2023 Dunn County Legislative Agenda. Supervisor Morehouse provided an overview, but I need a motion and a second. So we'll have to do a motion in a second, and then we'll also have to vote again.
Thank you.
He's right.
Yeah. We got Supervisor Morehouse, and we got Supervisor Breslin. Geez, you're on my case even from Florida, for goodness sakes.
I know, I'm sorry, which Breslin?
Sean.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? We're gonna take a vote now. Is that all right, Andrew? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Same sign. Motion carried. Take that. B2, resolution amending the 2023 legislative agenda, technical college funding. I would entertain a motion to approve that. Jim Zahn moves. Gary Bjork seconds it. Any discussion? Hearing none. Supervisor Larry Bjork.
Wanted to say that now I got a name blank, the fellow that's been presenting this to us for years and years and years, researches it.
Terry Nichols.
Terry Nichols. He wouldn't lead us wrong. Let's put it that way.
Thank you. Any other comments? Hearing none. Oh, go ahead.
I'm going to need to abstain because I'm an employee of one of the named parties. So can you remember to call for abstentions in the vote?
Well, you can just abstain when it happens.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed?
Aye.
No. Same sign. We have one abstainer. Please note that in the minutes. Okay. Thank you. B3, resolution amending the 2023 legislative agenda, highway funding. Who would like to speak to that, if anybody? Need a motion? John Calabrese moves. Jim Zahn seconds. Any discussion, explanation? Perhaps Supervisor Neer would like to address that?
Not really, except to say, we did add a few things to make it more longer term, looking down, and I got to thank Sean Breslin for thinking about that, alternative fuels and the whole shebang. It's not just increasing the gas tax. So thank you.
I perhaps should have called on Supervisor Breslin, but thank you for your idea. It was well received. We have a motion in a second. Who else? I don't know if he's a little brother or big brother, but go ahead over there. Okay. Okay. All right. We have a motion in a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Resolution carries. 10B 4, Committee on Administration Resolution amending the inventory of job classification. Speaking to that, Supervisor Headland.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Committee on Administration back in December 15th received a request for us brought to us by Highway Commissioner Also had been consideration by the HR department. That the job classification that they were requesting be considered. The explanation for it is in your packet. It's a change of title and it's probably a more appropriate title of how we're gonna fill that position. It was recommended by our department then, or the committee on administration, to bring that resolution to the whole board. And so I would recommend it. It was recommended to us and we're recommending it to the rest of you. Thank you.
Is that in the form of a motion?
I would so move.
Okay. Supervisor Lanu seconds. We have a motion and a second. Any questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
What's the matter? Opposed, same sign. Guess I'm too fast here. I better slow down a little bit. Yeah. All right. I'm nervous, man. I'm nervous. Next order of business is the Health and Human Services Ordinance Amendment to 19-27 Health, second reading, first is read in November. So I would need a motion on that, correct?
No, that's already.
We just vote.
There's been a motion and a second for that came at in November.
Okay.
So you may debate now and then vote.
Is there any discussion? Supervisor Morehouse?
Mr. Vice Chair, this is pretty self-explanatory, but just let me remind the board that our health department licenses restaurants, campgrounds, hotels, B&Bs. That's a process that requires visits and review of data, et cetera, for which fees are charged. This amendment is a revision to a standing ordinance from 2018 that basically and inadvertently took away our local control of the structure of the fees that are charged to licensees and sort of de facto adopted state fee structures. That's not necessarily appropriate to the context of Dunn County. Some of the fee structures were described by staff as almost punitive and led to some controversy and a bunch of non-participation, which isn't necessarily in the interests of public health. So this amendment gives us, and specifically the Health and Human Services Board, the ability to set fees and sets out the type of fees and the structure around which we do that are appropriate for Dunn County. So this is a second read, but I would urge you to support this ordinance amendment.
Thank you, Supervisor Morehouse. We have a motion and a second. Supervisor Breslin? Oh, we already got a motion. And
We
a
have
second.
it.
But thank you.
We have
We'll
it.
double. Yeah, we'll double motion that baby. Here we go. Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Excuse me, opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Next order of business is 11, announcements. The next meeting, legislative agenda presentation, February 6th at 7 o'clock, and I think that's in room 54 here, right? Right here, where we'll make our presentations to our legislators. And next county board, Wednesday, February 15th, 2023 at 7 o'clock. Anybody else have any? Supervisor Morehouse?
Yes, I would just remind the members that the housing forums, as a product of our ongoing housing study, the forum for Dunn County is in this room on January 30th. Is that a Monday? Monday, January 30th. And this will involve presentation of a whole bunch of really helpful and useful data that are really designed to help us make some important policy choices. So please show up. I can't remember. I think 5:30.
Excuse me, I believe,
We have one other announcement.
Wait,
I believe there's a date change. I think it's the 31st.
It's the 31st.
It's the
All right,
31st
fine. I don't have my calendar in my head. Sorry, it's 31st
at 4:30.
at 4:30.
All right. We have one other
Don't listen
announcement.
to me, apparently.
One other announcement, Jackie. I mean, Deputy Clerk.
Either one. So tonight's refreshments were provided by the Acoustic Cafe right in town. And on that note, our Sunshine Fund has been depleted. So tonight we ask for the donations from our county board to be able to refresh the fund and provide what we have been doing is asking local businesses, small businesses, and they have been complying. So that's where the money is going. So
Dig deep, ladies and gentlemen. The Lord loves a good giver.
Supervisor Steen.
Yes.
Also, would Supervisors Morehouse, Supervisors Quinn, and Supervisors Headland please see Jackie for signatures on tonight's ordinances and resolutions that have been adopted.
Thank you, Andrew. Having said that, we've completed our business. I wanted to do that. We're adjourned.